Okay, so let's do a quick review. We're learning this short and potent mimer from 1964. Really, such a good year. And it's, as I told you guys yesterday, it's a preface to, maybe take a seat on the table, huh? Do us a favor. Here's a chair. That couch is a eater of mankind. Doesn't belong here. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You good? All right. So it's a preface to a much longer, more sophisticated mimer that the Rabbi said the next day. But let's crack into it because we don't have a lot of time to finish it. So we started by explaining this pasuk, Ve'yeh etzlo amon b'shashuai es b'nei adam. Right? There's a pasuk which goes through the sort of descent of the Torah through different stages of the Yishtalshlu, starting with the very highest level where the Torah is tucked into like the oneness of God, right? And that's what the Torah is speaking in this pasuk. It says, "I will be by him Amon," which means essentially someone like grown up in his bosom, basically. Is the context right there, which means it's the Torah as it is in its essential state before it gets even into the first state of expression. And then the Torah, the pasuk in Mishlei continues to explain a whole series of levels where the Torah comes out into Chochmah and Bina, and then into Zah, and then into Malchus, and then finally the final piece of the verse says, "And I will be the delight of man," which means the Torah comes down all the way into our level. But the idea that the connotation is that even when it comes down to our level, it still maintains its original status of being like the oneness of the Torah as it is inside of him, right? And that's kind of the thesis that the Rabbi is working on here. And he says we have to understand something. And he starts to explain how the demand of the angels to receive the Torah was counteracted by Moshe saying that did you go down to Mitzrayim? Do you have a Yetzer Hara? Which means essentially the angels wanted their hands on the Torah. Who can remember from yesterday's class why the angels were so desperate to get the Torah? That's enough. So because they were called standers, if you remember. Angels are standers. They're not called goers, which means they don't have sort of this ability to take flight into a incomparable level than the one that they were created in. So in other words, even though they're kind of actually have wings, so in a certain sense they do take flight, but they can't cross boundaries which are created for them. So for example, the angels of love don't ever experience fear and vice versa. So they should have bound. And they wanted to become walkers, right? Because the Jewish people are called Mahalchim Beina Omdim. We're called the walkers amongst the standers. They thought that if they got the hands on the Torah, it would give them this power to break boundaries. Why? Because the Torah's letters are called susim, we said. They're called horses. Someone who rides on a horse, he can all of a sudden sort of take flight. And so too, the letters of the Torah are able to bring godliness from the highest heights, right? And all the way, like a horse on its rider, all the way down to the lowest places. And also, conversely, they can, when we say the words of Torah, it's basically all of a sudden we can ride up into the heavens and reach the highest points. The angels also wanted to become movers, right? So they wanted the Torah. But when Moshe responded to them, no, you didn't go down to Mitzrayim, you don't have a Yetzer Hara, he was basically telling them to get that type of juice out of the Torah, where it's able to give you this power of hiluch, of going and walking and like incomparable growth. The only way you can get that part of the Torah out is when the Torah is cloaked into a physical place and you're using it to unearth the godly sparks that were hidden inside of darkness. That's why I said, did you go to Mitzrayim? If you don't have a Yetzer Hara, you can't become a rider on this horse. So the Torah sort of requires itself to be given to a physical world. And then the Rebbe ended with a question, then if there's such a requirement for the Torah to be in the physical world, how are we saying the first pasuk again? That basically, even down in this physical world, it contains the quality of the Torah as it is in its essential essence before it even sort of exposes itself outside of godliness. In other words, the place of the Torah is really down below, right? How is that fitting that the whole power of the Torah is specifically aimed at at dealing with creation, and not only creation, but the lowest aspects of creation. This is sort of where the Torah belongs, and yet we're saying that it's simultaneously the highest thing. If you think about the highest thing, it doesn't even consider the creations of the world. It's so far beyond any menial business of creation. So why are they linked together? Then we started to explain, and this was fascinating to me. It's for this reason that I wanted to learn this mimer, the difference between Torah and mitzvahs. And we started to explain that mitzvahs are limited to time and space. We started to say that there's mitzvahs, for example, like Sukkot and Pesach, right, where like they're actually in a particular time and space. And if you try and sort of eat a matzah before or after, or sit in the sukkah before or after, you did nothing. So it really sort of captures you into something very physical. And he says even mitzvahs which are sort of more expansive, like tzedakah, you don't have to do it in a particular time and space. You still need to use like gashmias money, and you still need to sort of encloak yourself into the actual act of it. It's still very limited in its expression, because that's the inyan of mitzvahs, that they basically are bound in time and space. Where we see that Torah learning, on the contrary, it shows itself to have sort of a different angle, because you can learn about the laws of Pesach in the middle of Shavuos, and it's still called Talmud Torah. You can learn about the laws of Sukkot in the middle of Pesach, and it's still called Talmud Torah. You can learn about karbanos when you're not even actually giving a carbon. It has nothing to do with the actual physical world, but you're still sort of totally fulfilled the inyan of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. So we see Talmud Torah has a completely different angle, where it's not so much concerned about sort of cloaking itself into the actual expression of the command and embodying the command in a physical way. Yeah. So we spoke about that yesterday, and we said that even the what we call the chovas halavavos, just ava and fear and knowledge of God and the belief of God, which seemingly are more spiritual in their nature, still, as the Friedrich Rebbe points out, you still need a physical heart to do it. And on the contrary, if you don't actually feel it in your heart, you didn't really do it, right? So it's taking place in also like in time and space coordinates, that you actually have to embody this mitzvah and feel the love. It's just as time bound and place bound really as any other mitzvah. It's just a little bit more of the inside of you as opposed to external, but it's also physical, right? Whereas Talmud Torah is unique in this sense that it doesn't really care about the practical application of like building a mitzvah, right? Like it says, "Va'asisim osam." There's a pasuk that says, "You will do them," and then there's the drush that says, when it says the word osam, it's missing a vav, osam. It says without a vav, so it reads "Va'asisim atem," and it says in Chassidus basically that you make them, not you shall perform them, but you make them, you build them. You have to build the mitzvah and like construct it, and it's all about embodying itself into a physical place in time and space. Torah, you're not building anything. You're just kind of talking about Pesach in the middle of Sukkot. So we also went one step further here, and this is where we sort of hold on a second. Let me just and so what do we explain here? This is the kind of the cool part. Is because Torah. Let's see if we can understand this. Because Torah, in its root, is basically from this place where we said, Vayeh etzlo amon. We started the mimer with this verse, I'm going to be by him. I don't have a great translation of amon, but like it's basically like this like child in the bosom of their father, that the Torah is like, its true place is before it takes any expressions. It's absolutely one with Hashem, right? So since that's the case, what's going on inside the Torah at that level of Ein Sof, try and work with me here, right, is not so much the issuance of commands, but the discussion and the decree inside of Hashem's like singularity of what will take place outside of that singularity. So basically all the mitzvahs, I'd kind of like to read this inside for a second, just this one line. If everyone could turn to page 22, let's get the Rebbe's words on this, and then we'll continue the review. Actually, this is a rare moment. I want to go back and read it inside. Go down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down. You got a mimer there. Stay with the game. Say l'chaim. Guys, it's about to be Matan Torah. We gotta get serious here. Okay, so 7 lines down at the period, it says Va'inyanhu. You see that? Shoresh HaTorah hu b'chinas chochma hakaduma b'matzil b'atzmus hamatzil. That the source of Torah is in the primordial wisdom and the essence of the emanator. Remember we said this kind of interesting language yesterday. In other words, it's basically inside of God. As it says, that I'm going to be, I am one with him. And there in that place of ultimate oneness, you have a mimer, Zalman? Here, pass this down. Here, we have an extra one. 8 lines down. And that place of total oneness, which has not really gone into any form of expression yet, nonetheless, it's decided and decreed how the expressions will be when they come out. So it's like the full-on blueprint, basically, of what a eventually structure of mitzvahs and the structure of the world will look like when they finally come into lights and vessels and take shape. In this place of the Atzmus, where the Torah's like home is, there is no shapes yet, right? There's just a discussion and a decision that shapes and mitzvahs and particular forms of mitzvahs will come out, right? Those will eventually be the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs are those things which actually come into kelim. Like I said, where you have to build them, they actually take form and take shape. But inside of the Torah above, it's like it precedes the level of mitzvahs. There, it's just determined and decreed, right? That when such and such a mitzvah will be done, then Hashem sort of like allows his infinite light to join. The emanator agrees to join with the world of emanation and actually come out in a particular way as 10 spheros, or as basically God puts on tefillin, whatever it is, and he takes form. But inside of the original light, it's just the determination that if such a mitzvah will be done, he agrees to take that form, right? And so, fine. So the point is that when a person learns, let's go back to our original discussion, because that's what Torah is above, and Hashem wanted to give us the Torah, then also in this world, when we learn Torah, we see that there's a certain sort of disconnect that Torah has from the actual practical application. Unlike every other mitzvah, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah doesn't really require you to build anything. It's like it stays in its sort of formless place, because when you're doing that particular mitzvah of Talmud Torah, you're drawing down not from like the supernal source of mitzvahs, which is already godliness in a construct form. You're drawing down from the source of Torah, which is godliness, which is yet to take any form. And so even though we're in a world of form and we're kind of stuck with it, but we have this mitzvah of Talmud Torah, which is in some way formless. And the idea is that it's a kli for the formlessness of the source of Torah above, which is in this dimension beyond form. Is everyone following this? It's cool, right? Okay, now he says one more point that we made yesterday, just as a final idea, like another example of this, which is why when you learn Torah, you see that the Torah is not a book of commands. Now that's going to sound funny because until now you thought that's exactly what it is. But a book of commands would basically be like, it would not be saying God said to Moses, he should command the Jewish people. That's already basically, you're hearing about the commands. You're not being directly spoken to. That's what we mean when we say it's not a book of commands. It's not a book, it's a book about commandments. But it's not written in such a way where it's a book that's addressed to you, commanding you, right? It's basically you're hearing about a conversation that took place with God and Moshe in which commandments were given to the Jewish people. And what's the significance there is that essentially this is the same idea that the Torah down in this world is a little manifestation of what's going on in the Torah in the higher world. In the Torah in its source is not yet issuing the commands. When the commands are actually issued, that's when they come out of the Torah and they come into like mitzvah world. But in the world where of the source of Torah, there's just a discussion of the commands, right? Because they haven't yet actually entered into their world of form. It's just a decree of how if you will do such and such a thing, I'll agree to come out in form. But in that place of the source, it hasn't yet taken form, and therefore we see that the Torah in this world is a step, like a tefach higher than actually being associated with the actual command, right? It doesn't issue commands, it just discusses them. And that is yet another example of the idea that the Torah sort of just doesn't yet lend itself to actually come down and get involved in your business yet. Because the Torah in this world is a model of its source, where it's above sort of the particulars of actually addressing the actual creation. You following?
All the mitzvahs are from the Torah, and they're kind of written in stone. You have to do them.
Yes, but I'm just saying, like, it's when God, let's say, for example, came to us on Har Sinai, he said, I am the Lord, your God, and you shall have, like, that was it's a conversation to you. But when we get the Torah, it's not a conversation to me. I'm reading about that story. And I can pick up on the fact that, okay, this applies to me. But it's not directed to me directly. And that's very intentional. It's written by, so to speak, a narrator. There's a narrator to the Torah. Who's talking, right? It's called the Shlishi HaMedaber, this third person that's talking. And he's like standing there, he's saying, God says to Moshe, you shall tell the Jewish people such and such. Why doesn't it just say, like, you shall do this, and you shall do this, and you shall do this, without the whole story behind it, which is basically keeping the conversation in some kind of a potential state before it actually gets to us. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that the mitzvahs are like suggestions, like, oh, you should do it. If you do it, I'll do this. Like, mitzvahs are like a lot of, like, you have to do it.
Of course you have to do all the mitzvahs, but I'm saying that they're not being issued as a command directly from the story of the Torah. You see what I mean? Okay. It's a little bit, it's a cool idea. It's subtle. Okay, so that's what we said yesterday. That's the conclusion of our introduction here. Now let's go on to page 22, the very, very bottom line, right? And this is the finale of this conversation. There's one more point to sort of lock this in, make us understand it, which is very cool. With this, we'll understand Gam Mashakasubasim Kol Parsha B'Torah. So many parshas of the Torah end with the words Ani Hashem. You ever notice that? You get to like an end of a particular talk, it's just Anam God. Like, right? There's no doubt in it. Right? So what's the need for that? Like continuous statement, I'm God. Hine Shem Havaya. So first of all, Ani Havaya. So it's very specific, right? I and then Yud Ke Vav Ke. So Shem Havaya, Mora al Eser Spheres Tatzilas. Of course, we know Chassidim over here that the name Yud Ke Vav Ke is a direct message about the 10 spheros, right? Yud is Chochmeh, the first Hey is Bina, the Vav is the Midos, and the final Hey is Malchus, right? Everybody knows that. So basically, it's like Ani, the 10 spheros. So at the end of every portion of the Torah, basically it says, I am Havaya, which is another way of saying the 10 spheros. What's that? The last Hey is Malchus. Page 23, top line. Now, what is Havaya? What is the 10? Yes, Noah? Because just it's simpler than saying Yud Ke Vav Ke every time. Havaya. It's a spelling of it, but also the word Havaya has a meaning of to bring into being. So you say Yud Ke Vav Ke, you're just saying letters. When you say the word Havaya, it actually has a meaning, and it means like what the word God actually means, which means to bring into being. So fine. So what is Havaya? It's exactly what we just said. It's the source and the core, the root of bringing the world into existence, right? That's what the word Havaya actually means, right? To make be. So in this state where it's called Yud Ke Vav Ke, Hashem is already getting involved in our business, right? When it's Ani, as we're going to soon see, I, this is like a level of God which precedes his interest in making and bringing the worlds into existence. But the name Havaya is already like a Seder Ishtalshlus, right? It's going through the order of the spheros, and it's basically coming down, tzimtzum and contraction and expansion. It's basically bringing the worlds into existence. So when you get to Havaya, this is already the source of the existence of the worlds. Aval Ani Kayal Atzmus Amatzil. But the word Ani is far beyond Havaya. It's referring to Hashem himself. It's I, right? Not I, like putting on my worker hat and deciding to descend into a conversation with you. Havaya is basically I coming out of my own space and entering into your domain, at least at some primordial level. Torah. But why is the Torah continuously like giving us this little summary? Ani Havaya, Ani Havaya, Ani Havaya. Why is that the Torah's sort of punchline. He says, Torah mischaber or hamatzel lahayir b'netzalim. Because what did we just get through saying the Torah was? Through the Torah, it's how the light of the emanator, God, right, will join and shine into the emanated world. This is what the Torah is. It's like it's a discussion, so to speak, inside of God's oneness, that if they're going to do such and such, I will agree to draw down into such and such a form. So basically, and so this is what the whole Torah is. Right? The Torah is basically sitting inside of God as the conversation before it actually takes form, but like the agreement and the decree that if such and such a thing will be done, I'm in. I'll be drawn down. And therefore, at the end of every portion of the Torah, it says, Ani Havaya, which is basically that exact conversation. It's like, I will come down into Yud Kei Vav Kei according to what it says in this Torah. Zeo Omru Ani Havaya. That's what it says. I am Havaya. Hainu Sha'ani Ba'atzmi. I myself, the essence of the emanator, God himself, Meir Mischaber B'Shem Havaya, Datzilus. I will shine and connect myself into the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is essentially the world of Atzilus. How? If this mitzvah that's discussed, not issued as a command, but that's discussed in this parsha, will be actually fulfilled as a command, then Ani Havaya, count me in. The Ani will come down and join with the world of Atzilus. Right, so it's biduk what we said. It's like the agreement and the decree that God allows himself to be drawn down should the mitzvah be fulfilled. That's called Ani Havaya. V'zeu gam ha'shenemar moadei Havaya. In a very similar vein, because remember we said that the mitzvahs are like sort of in time and space. So something called moadei Havaya. What's the moadei Havaya? The simple meaning? Anyone? We say this like when we say Kiddush on the festivals, right? Moadei Havaya means the festivals, the 3 festivals of Hashem. A Moed, like the Oel Moed. What's the Oel Moed? The tent of meeting. Where does the word Moed come from? Hisvadus. You ever heard of a Hisvadus? You never heard of a Hisvadus? It's the Hebrew word for bringing. Yeah. So the Oel Moed comes to the word of Farbrengen, basically. Right? Farbrengen means to bring together. Because basically it's the place on earth where Hashem says, that's where you can meet me. In other words, it's basically, in a certain sense, the Oel Moed is essentially code for like every mitzvah. It's the form and the place and time and space that Hashem decides to come out and join into. So Moadei Havaya, so the word Moed also, it means the Oel Moed, it means the actual tent of meeting, but it also has another meaning, which is probably a more common meaning, which means Moadim L'Simcha. You never heard that? People in the street will come and tell you, happy holidays, basically. Moadim are the holidays, the Moed. So it's when it says Moadei Havaya, we can see why they're called Moadei Havaya, right? Because a Moed is the idea of Hashem basically coming down into your holiday, into time and space, into the 7 days of Sukkot, into the 7 days of Pesach. And that's the union of Havaya, right? That he decides to come out of his infinite oneness based on exact instructions of how you're supposed to keep this holiday. And he comes and makes a Moed, like a Hisvadus, a Farbrengen, with us in our physical time and space. Yud Kei Vav Kei, Moadei Havaya. Eilehem Moadai. And then it says, these are my Moadim. So in other words, Moadei Havaya is basically different than Moadai, which means they're mine versus just like we said, Ani Havaya. So also you have my Moadim and Moadei Havaya, the Moed as it comes into form versus the Moed as it is sort of in the pre-form state inside the Torah. I'm getting a lot of blank faces over here. You guys following this? Yeah? No?
Yeah, a little repetition.
What's that?
A little repetition.
You're saying I'm being repetitive.
Oh, no.
In my mind, I just keep saying the same thing over and over again. All right, let's try and get it one more time, guys. We're basically, you understand the Ani Havaya piece. Did that come clear? No? 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 Ani Havaya is the key piece to sort of understanding what this paragraph is about, right? At the end of every parsha in the Torah, which means this is like the Torah's thing, Ani Havaya. What do we say the Torah was? A sort of discussion of inside of a formless place to agree to form to agree that the formlessness should take form, should certain conditions of the fulfillment of the mitzvah be fulfilled. You with me? That. So that's why in the Torah it says Ani Avaya. It's basically Hashem saying the Ani, which is like the formless oneness, will come into a state of Havaya, which is Yud Ke Vav Ke, which is basically taking form, if you fulfill whatever parsha, the commandment that's said in that parsha of the Torah. So it's basically like, it's exactly what we've been saying. It's like the agreement and the acceptance of God to come into form in the Torah, which is precedes form, should you fulfill whatever commandments are said in that parsha. Then we said, on a very similar vein, this is also what's called Moadei Havaya and Eilehem Moadai. So you have a very similar thing. Just in other words, a Moed, which is either the tent of meeting, or here it's referring to the holidays, which is essentially the same thing, right? Creating a structure to hold God, whether it's a building or a piece of time of 7 days. And they're called Moadei Havaya in one pasuk, and they're also called Moadai in another pasuk. Moadai means basically how they are by me, like I'll agree, so to speak, that there's such that I could be summoned with a Moed. And if I was, they would be called Moadei Havaya, because the Moed would then come down into the form of Yud Ke Vav Ke and take shape. Right? So there's in the Torah it speaks about these two levels. Is that clear or no?
What's Moadai?
Moadai means my Moed,
What's the explanation?
my holiday. You notice when the Moedim is another way of the pshat here is it's talking about the holidays. A Moed is like we're coming on Sukkot, Shavuos. It's a Moed, right? And when Hashem describes the holidays, He says these are my Moedim.
So Moadai, this is from God's perspective or our perspective?
No, so Hashem is saying it. He's saying they're my Moed, but there's also a statement Moadei Havaya. So there's sort of two states of the Moed. It's either the Moed as it is still in like the oneness of Hashem, or there's the Moed as it agrees to come down into a form of Havaya, which is actually to be expressed when we'll fulfill the mitzvah down here, just like Ani Havaya. Yeah, you with me?
So the idea kind of like Ani Havaya could be it's actually being said by the narrator.
Yeah, said by the narrator, exactly. Which is the whole point.
Yeah,
the narrator saying, like, I will,
yeah.
I can be summoned, I will be Havaya if you do what it says here. So hine moadim hem azmanim shebehem yischaber beyumshach or hamatzah betosefes or, right? What are the moadim? Those are the specific times, right? Time and place where you can join and draw down the emanator that he will basically flow into this world, right? There's creation, and then there's this idea that Hashem will sort of come into creation if we make a space for him through the mitzvahs, through the moadim. So the idea is making this moed is like Hashem says, take these 7 days in time and space. It's like the concept of what we were talking about before about a mitzvah, and I'll flow I'll connect the emanator, the essence of God to this world through this moment. And basically in the Torah, the essence is this having a discussion and like relating Odos kavias hasmanim lios moad lahavaya. He's like saying, it's like he's sitting there like with himself, with the Torah, like having a conversation. Yes, I will agree to be summoned into their tent, which is the 7 days of Sukkot, whatever it might be, right? And become the moed of Havaya if they fulfill this mitzvah. Right? That the emanator is discussing the fixing of these times to be a moed of Havaya. Umasayim eilehem moadai. And then he concludes, these are my moadim. In other words, they're my moadim, meaning to say, I can be summoned down there because in my own source of the Torah, before I'm coming out, I've determined and decreed through my wisdom that those times will be able to hold me. That tent will be able to hold me. Those mitzvahs will be able to hold me. Right? That in those times the light of the emanator can be drawn down. So Eilehem Moadai, that's like Hashem talking to himself. I will agree, and then Moadei Hashem, Moadei Yud Ke Vav Ke, is basically when he actually decides to enter in. Questions, comments, concerns? Are you guys following what's going on here? Yeah? Okay. So now we're going to take a little turn. And it goes like this. Let's see the timing here. Lost my. Okay, we got plenty of time. Dalit. Al pi ze yuvan. According to this week, yeah, go ahead. What's the last thing I said?
Yeah, right.
It was like a paragraph. Which part do you want?
The absolute, after what you re-explained.
I'm saying like there's the idea of moadai, which is Hashem's like discussion of the moadim to himself, where he's agreeing that if such and such a thing will be done, then there will be moadei havaya. Then he will basically agree to actually draw down the emanator into the actual time and space of our creation.
That was it, but it was more.
I think that's all I got right now. Yeah. Okay.
We said something earlier. He said, in order to ride the horse or the wagon,
In order to what?
I think in coffee, you're saying something like in order to ride the horse or the wagon up, you have like 8 or something.
Yeah, we spoke about that in the beginning. We were saying that basically the letters of the Torah are called horses. Why? Because essentially God travels in them. And not only does he travel, but he travels at the speed of a horse. Like, in other words, you can fly with those letters. But in order to get that power of like this incredible speed and ability to traverse, boundaries through the Torah, those letters of the Torah, the angels couldn't do it. They couldn't. In other words, they wanted the Torah because they wanted that power. But it wasn't relevant for them because the only way to mine that power out of the Torah is in this world. When you're dealing with the Torah, trying to like basically struggle against separating good from evil and sort of like wielding the Torah in this world where it comes against resistance, that's how you mine that horsepower out of the Torah. And so therefore it wasn't relevant to give to the angels.
It doesn't really matter.
You need a Yetzer Hara. It's this world, but this world comes with a Yetzer Hara. What's that? Didn't you got one when you came in? They have one. I mean, it says David killed it from fasting, but the truth is that the tzaddikim, in a certain sense, they still have to contend with some type of resistance. So maybe it's not their Yetzer Hara, but it's your Yetzer Hara that they're fighting, right? So they're still the fact that they're in this world, they're up against resistance, right? So okay, let's go on to chapter 4. Al pi ze yuvan ma'alos limud Torah gam lagabi tefila. We can now understand. This is like a turn, right? So you're taking in a different direction. He's trying to explain the greatness of the Torah, and he says we can see it's even greater than davening. First, a very interesting statement from the sages, which is Ein mosrin razei Torah ela lemisha libo doeg bakirbo. That and this, you guys, sorry to let this news out on you there, but they only give over the secrets of the Torah to someone whose heart worries within him. You cannot be a recipient of the secrets of the Torah unless you have like a worried heart. What does it mean? L'chora eino muvan. Seemingly, it's not understood. Ma shayach daigas halev l'kabalas razei Torah. Why do I have to be having worries in order to receive the secrets of the Torah? Acha inyanhu dehine kechol sha'adam ma'ayin ma'amik daito lasig berom muzar or ein sof. The idea is that the more that a person will investigate and deepen his mind and grasp into the wonders and exaltedness of the Or Ein Sof, in other words, you're going to take this kind of project seriously and really contemplate the nature of God. The more you do that, yavo yosli de daigas alev mitzad richok hasagaso. Guess what? You're going to start worrying because you're going to basically realize you don't understand anything, and you want to understand, and it bothers you. You're really does this guy know what he's talking about? Does anyone know? Does the Rabbi know what he's talking about? What's happening here? I'm only grasping at straws. You get something, but the more you get, the more you realize how much you don't get, and it's just kind of this endless pursuit of trying to find out the truth. Does this ring a bell? He says, just like a deep idea. Forget, for example, we're just using a mushal. It doesn't have to be you're thinking about God. Just trying to think about, understanding chess. Like for me, you see guys, they or like a Rubik's cube. Like, what are you doing over there? There's some people can understand deep. You ever seen a thesis of like a mathematician. You know, when you write a thesis for your history class, I can read it. I might not understand all the history, the details. You're going to write philosophy, a few words I don't understand. You ever seen a thesis of like a mathematician? It's just letters and numbers and symbols. I don't know what they're talking about, right? It's crazy stuff. It's just symbols and letters and equations. So in other words, it's deep. You realize that there's something deep going on here. Like any deep conversation, as soon as you're going to start to understand a little bit of it, you'll more and more understand how much you don't understand. Right? This is the thing, is the second you like sort of let in on this conversation, you start to be troubled by it. Not so, someone who doesn't have any idea what it says, and he's not interested in knowing what it says, he doesn't even want to open it up and sort of find out the olive base of it. Ein lo daigas alev. Guess what? He doesn't worry. What's the line? It's like a fool, something like it's better if you. I forget. You don't have Ruach HaKodesh. What am I thinking? It's whatever. Basically, if you don't know, you don't worry, right? There's like a phrase like that.
Ignorance is bliss.
It's okay. Ignorance is bliss. Thank you. Is that what you said? Ignorance is bliss. That's what he's saying here. You're just like a happy little guy because you haven't even considered the purpose of your life. And you haven't even considered if the mitzvahs are true, if there's a God and there's Har Sinai. Once you open up this conversation, you start to actually get involved in it, and you know a little bit, then you need to know a lot, and all of a sudden you're like frustrated. And if you don't know, you're happy, right? You don't have to deal with it. It's like, I didn't enter that box. I don't even know there's such a thing as astrophysics. It doesn't bother me. As soon as I start to open it up, now it bothers me. And the more I want to know, the more I'm bothered. And that's why I say they only give secrets of the Torah to somebody who's like really worried about it because it's bothering you. That's what it means. Only to a warrior you give the secrets. Why? Because what is the worry in your heart really? It's showing that you actually have some kind of a connection with this topic. It's showing that you're concerned about it and you're close to it and you want to be involved in it. That's why you suddenly feel this worry. That's why you're worried about being far from it. But guess what? There's good news. Because you now are worried about it, you become a fit entity to receive the secrets of the Torah. That's what it says. They only give the secrets of the Torah to someone who's bothered by it. So there's like a way out of this thing.
Somehow that always bothers me.
Now, what is really the worry that we're talking about? This is really davening. That's what it means to have a worried heart. You're like, Hashem, please. Like you could be davening, Hashem, please. I want the new pair of sneakers that just came out. Or you could daven for real. Like, please, I want to know who you are. That's what davening really is. You're asking, you're requesting your needs. If you're a serious person, your needs is to understand the nature of the universe and what you're doing here. So this is really davening. And remember, we started this paragraph by saying Torah is higher even than davening. We explained that Torah is higher than mitzvahs. It's like in a different league than mitzvahs. That's the whole class we had up until now, was that Torah is in this place of oneness before it takes the form of mitzvahs. But what we're saying now is that Torah is even higher than davening, which is basically this deep introspection of trying to find Hashem, where you're looking towards leaving the form and knowing who He is. But the Torah is even higher than that. Ki mitzad is bonus vasaga belukus. What is davening? It says, tefillah bli kavana is kaguf bli neshama. So if you daven and you don't have kavana, it's like a body without a soul. So there's no such thing as davening, and really, which is not essentially kavana. Which is, what is your kavana? That's why we learn Chassidus for an hour before we daven, because you have to be misbonen and think about godliness. That's what tefillah is. You're not just saying those words, like you're trying to have your heart worry inside of you to obtain more. Again, davening is basically the worried heart, because the more you meditate, which is the function of davening, the more you're going to realize how far away you are from understanding the exaltedness of the Or Ein Sof. And so you're just like in a state of davening is basically worrying. That's what he's saying. Sorry. That's why tefillah is also called pouring out the soul. As it says, I'm going to pour out my soul before you. Why is this like a pouring out of the soul? What's so like dramatic about this experience of davening? Because you just learned Chassidus, and the more you understand, you learn just how like far away and incomparable you are. And that only creates a greater thirst. To the point you just become like, you fall in like a love sickness. If you do this right, you're going to be like, mamish, having a worried heart and like in a state of love sickness in davening. I don't know if anyone's actually ever been lovesick before, but there's like, that's pain. It's like real pain, right? And this is what we're supposed to like realize about our beloved every day. We're supposed to be like longing that my beloved is far from me. I'm not sure if I'm going to see him. I don't know who he is. Will we marry again? But what does it say? We give over the secrets of Torah to someone who's worried in his heart. So this is why we dafka go and learn Torah right after we daven, because essentially, learning Torah can quench that thirst. The Torah gives you the refuah. In other words, you get there. We spoke about in this beginning of the class before everyone came in, where we're waiting for everyone. The Jewish people went to sleep on Har Sinai the night before. That's why we stay up Tikkun Leil Shavuos. It's a tikkun for their sleep. What were they going for? They were basically trying to find Hashem. They wanted to go leave their bodies because they thought in a state of sleep they'd be closer and closer and closer. They wanted to arise higher and higher. It's like davening. Davening is called Aliyas HaNefesh. They wanted to go up, but you're never going to get there. How high do you have to go to get to Hashem? It goes on forever. So the truth is, the only way to get to Hashem is if He gives Himself to you, right? And He says, "Here I am." Right? You don't have to like long for me and search for me and worry about me. If you were worried about me and you were searching to find me, then I'll give you over the secrets of the Torah, which basically means Hashem's essence is delivered to you. That's what you were looking for in the first place. You find it in the Torah. So that's the idea of the Torah is a refuah to this love sickness that happened during davening. And why is the Torah able to do that? For all the reasons we said before. The Torah is basically God. Right? Its source is inside of the oneness of God before God takes any form, right? And it's basically just Amon. It's like basically just like growing up and living in His bosom, and it's before form. It's before mitzvahs. It's before any disconnect. So that's beautiful mitzvah of Talmud Torah. That unique mitzvah can put God into your hands, as it says, "It's lo Amon." Like the essential delight that God is having in Himself, He put it into the Torah. And therefore it can also delight you when you are given access to it, because He gives us the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. This is how your soul will basically cool down from this worrying. You who are worried will be given over the secrets of the Torah, and it will quench your thirst.
They didn't have the remedy yet.
They didn't have the remedy yet. True. Hainu lefisha b'Torah shora atzmus amatzu mamash. And why does it heal you? Because, as we said, it holds the essence of God inside of it. That thing you're grappling to look for. You don't necessarily get it with your brain per se, but you're sitting in those horses' letters, and it traverses you all the way up to it where it is, and you're with God. So in other words, what are you so longing for? You to be one with your beloved. Here you go. You're one with your beloved. Okay, we're coming down the home stretch here. He says, Ubeze Yuvan Gam Maim Razal. Now we can understand what it says. Ashrei mi sheba lakan v'talmud biyado. Page 24. Right? It says when a person passes away and goes to Gan Eden, it says, happy is he who comes to hear Gan Eden with his learning in his hand. In other words, if you learned in this world, you take it with you. Seemingly it's not understood. Why are you busy going to Gan Eden with the Torah in your hand that you got in this world? The Torah in this world was kind of a different kind of a Torah than the Torah they have there. And it seemingly is not so productive to have the Torah from here and over there, because our Torah is about deed. right? It's the whole Torah is about basically fulfilling physical mitzvahs and action. Whereas there, none of that's really going to help you. You learn how to like put on tefillin and all the calligraphy of how to write it. There's no pens up there. What is that going to help you? Why are you busy bringing your Torah to there? We have 5 minutes, yeah? We also have to understand what is the learning of Torah in Gan Eden exactly. We know that there is Torah study in Gan Eden, big time. We just learned about it in our afternoon class. It says there was a whole argument, if you remember, about Saras, and they were busy arguing in the heavenly courts whether it was pure or not pure, a particular case. Amri man nochach, they said, well, who's here to the expert who can determine this for us? And they said, Rabbi Bar Nachmani, right? A particular sage was sitting there, Mamash in Gan Eden, and they were discussing it. There's a whole yeshiva in Gan Eden. What's going on in the Torah of Gan Eden? Don't we say that the whole Indian of they voted, right? That Torah was greater than mitzvahs because it brings you to mitzvahs. In other words, the whole greatness of Torah is that it's an instruction for what to do. Just Torah on its own. There's an important phrase that we say. Someone who says, I just want to learn Torah. I don't want to do mitzvahs. We say, you don't even have Torah. That whatever you think you're learning, you're not getting God. Because if you're not learning in order to do, you're not learning at all. So over there in Gan Eden, there's no doing. What kind of Torah do they have over there? The only Indian of Torah is learning in order to do. Over there, it's not relevant to do anything. So how do we explain this? Even though the learning in Gan Eden is not regarding practical matters, but it's very similar to what we said before, that the realm of Torah itself is sort of in this place where it's in its source, it's really beyond time and space, right? In other words, even though there's a concept that you have to learn Torah in order to do, but the actual inyan of Torah is removed a step from the whole concept of the form of doing. In its source, Torah is actually beyond deed. Why is that? Because just the speech of Torah itself, remember we said in the beginning of the class, it sort of accesses the source of Torah, whether you're learning Torah in Gan Eden, or whether you're learning Torah here, whether you're learning Torah in any of those stages that we discussed, the Torah comes all the way down. If you're dealing with Torah, you're basically accessing the root of Torah, which is something which is essentially beyond form. Not so when you're dealing with mitzvahs, which are only vessels to the drawing forth of this light. And therefore, there is such a thing as learning Torah in Gan Eden. In other words, Torah is actually very, very, very fitting for Gan Eden, because in its source, Torah is beyond form, and it's beyond deed. Adarabah. This is like where they went to go to sleep. They were onto something. Out of my body, in a certain sense, I can have more access to Torah, because Torah is a formless thing in its essence, right? So too, if you're in Gan Eden, the Torah that you're learning there, which is basically you're dealing with the formlessness of Torah. Since you're formless, you almost have more connection to Torah. What's that? They have kalim of they have a yeshiva, right? They don't have physical form, but they have a form enough form that the mitzvahs are kalim for the light that comes into the Yud Kei Vav Kei. But the truth is that the Talmud Torah is a formless thing. So actually, Gan Eden is a pretty great place for Torah, and that's why there's a Masifta in Gan Eden. They're learning Torah over there. But what's the idea? The last two lines. So Talmud Shalom. It's only when they're learning the Torah that they learned in this world. In other words, they said, who's here at our Masifta? They said, Rabbi Bar Nachmani, because he brought his Torah with him from here. Why? Because remember we said before, when the neshama is in a body, that's when you get the true power of the Torah. Because the angels, remember we said before, they don't have the ability to refine the world, so therefore they can't mine the horsepower out of the Torah. But should they have come into this world and mined the horsepower out of the Torah, then when they go up there, they actually have much greater revelations of Torah than they could ever have in this world, because they did mine the horsepower of that. That's why it's happy is he who comes to here with his Torah from there. Right? Because we got the Torah that has this advantage of light that comes from darkness. So when you bring it up back, so the angels themselves, they couldn't have Torah because they never came down to this world. They're not shy to this world. But the neshamas who were in this world mined out the horsepower and then go up there, they actually have a higher level of Torah learning up there, because Torah is more shy to there, because Torah is a formless entity which precedes coming into any action. And therefore it's very, very relevant to Gan Eden. So we got to wrap it up. I see you guys are tired, but one last paragraph. And this is what it means. I will be by him this sort of nursing source of Torah. I don't. It's a tough word to translate, but you're getting the point by now. Etzlo Amon, the source of the Torah in Hashem's essence, as it is above the entire Seder Ishtalshlus. That's where the Torah is. Mikom Makom, second line at the end. Darshu Chazal, the sages said, Al tikre Amon ela Uman, right? Or Omen, right? Which means a craftsman. So he says, don't read that when we say Amon, it's referring to like a child in the breast of their mother, right? Just like totally inter-included inside of the oneness of Hashem, which we said is the source of Torah. And yet we have this other phrase that the word Amon also is the exact same letters as Omen, which means a craftsman, which is the exact opposite of basically being in a formless state. A craftsman is the one who's making the crafts. He's forming things. So the Torah says, I was the tool of the craftsman's tool of Hashem, right? Didn't he create the world with the Torah? It's totally the practical creator. Meaning Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world with it. How do these two things go together? They're seemingly like totally opposites. On one hand, you're saying the Torah is totally removed from form. On the other hand, you're saying the same word, Amon, Uman, is basically a craftsman, which is about form. And he says, because the essence of the Creator in its formless state can decreed and decided how the Shishtalshush was going to come out, as we said before, right? And so there is a sort of craftsmanship inside of there. It's just that level of finite craftsmanship is still united and glued into an infinite space. And therefore, it doesn't really take form. Even though it's the former of all things, it doesn't actually take form itself because it's inside of Hashem's oneness. And this is what we say, it's not in the way of his slavshus. In other words, all that form of Torah, all those letters, they don't actually take a physical form of Yud Kei Vav Kei. They don't come out. It's like the Yud Kei Vav Kei as it is in its essence, and therefore it's in no contradiction, even though Hashem is the former of worlds, for that form to take place in a formless source. That's it. I got nothing else for you over here. Chazak Baruch.